Good Tuesday morning, and thank you for being with us here on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Jason Hackett. Let's get to your headlines. Grab an extra pair of gloves on your way out this morning. Whipping winds are dropping the temperatures around the metro near 20 degrees below zero. We are almost out of this frigid stretch, though. We're going to check in with our weather team in just a little bit. Happening today, Greg Bavino, the Border Control Commander, is leaving Minnesota today alongside some federal agents. Replacing him on the ground is Border Czar Tom Homan. The shift happening after a change in tone from President Trump. When Border Czar Tom Homan gets his bearings today, Governor Walz plans to ask him to get all 3,000 federal agents out of the state. This comes after Governor Walz said he had a productive conversation with President Trump, telling our news partner NPR the president agreed to do things differently while Homan is in town. That's welcome news to the governor and to Republicans in the state as well, like Senator Zach Duckworth. He's now calling for an independent investigation into Alex Preddy's shooting and asking for Homeland Security for a tactical pause.
Whether it was morality or bad optics and poll numbers, whatever has happened here, there is a definite change of tone. There is definitely a more collaborative tone.
We don't have to do a 180 and completely abandon our efforts to enforce immigration law and target those that we really should be targeting, violent criminals who aren't here lawfully. But we need to do it in a way that's better, that's more targeted, and using tactics and methods that are much safer.
Governor Walz also says he spoke to President Trump about allowing state investigators to look into Alex Preddy and Renee Good's killings. Again, Walz plans to ask Homan to remove all 3,000 federal agents from the state. We're live in D.C. this morning as lawmakers work to avoid a government shutdown. Senate Democrats say they're ready to pass multiple funding bills as long as they don't include money for Homeland Security. This all comes after Democrats agreed to not vote for a DHS funding bill in the wake of Alex Preddy's death. Senator Amy Klobuchar says she can't support the package unless Republicans agree to make changes around immigration enforcement.
We're going to need immigration enforcement in this country. We always have. And we need border control. That's a good thing. But the way they're doing it is completely out of hand. And that's why we should be able to use our vote to push for reforms and a complete overhaul of this agency.
Right now, the bill does not have the 60 votes it needs to pass. Still, Republicans say they're planning to hold a vote before Friday. Frustration over federal immigration tactics is coming from both sides of the aisle. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem now set to testify on Capitol Hill next month. This is as we wait for two major legal battles to play out here in Minnesota. Megan McPherson has the latest developments.
A judge is expected to rule soon on a lawsuit that could halt Operation Metro Surge, but she's waiting for a supplemental briefing from all parties by 6 p.m. tomorrow, which likely means that there will be no decision made until after that. Also in court Monday, another judge heard arguments in a case brought by the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension and the Hennepin County Attorney's Office, aimed at preserving evidence in the investigation into Alex Preddy's death. After the shooting, the BCA says its investigators were not allowed into the crime scene to investigate. In court, the BCA argued the feds allowed the crime scene perimeter to collapse too quickly within just a few hours, potentially spoiling evidence. A lawyer for the Department of Homeland Security pushed back on this, arguing the shooting involved a federal agent on a federal assignment, and therefore the investigation should be federal. Legal experts do say, though, that it's unusual to bar a state agency from a crime scene.
I'm not aware of a legal justification for impeding another agency from having access when they have the authority to investigate.
I don't have any confidence in the federal investigation when conducted by people who've already made up their mind and expressed it.
The judge did not ultimately make a decision, but says that he will be considering both sides of the argument and issue a ruling soon. In the meantime, that temporary restraining order will be in effect. Back to you.
Now, a decision did come down in a court of appeals allowing federal agents to tear gas or detain peaceful protesters until an ACLU lawsuit is decided. The ACLU argued government officers are violating the constitutional rights of residents. Government attorneys argue officers acted within their legal authority to enforce immigration laws and protect themselves. This morning, we're learning the race for governor is shrinking. Attorney Chris Madel announced he's dropping out of the race yesterday. He says he can't continue to support the Republican Party's, quote, retribution on Minnesotans. In his announcement, he calls the current ICE surge an unmitigated disaster, saying the National Republican Party made it impossible to win a statewide race in Minnesota.
United States citizens, particularly those of color, live in fear. United States citizens are carrying papers to prove their citizenship. That's wrong. ICE has authorized its agents to raid homes using a civil warrant that need only be signed by a Border Patrol agent. That's unconstitutional and it's wrong.
It's important to note here, Madel provided legal counsel for Jonathan Ross, the ICE officer who shot and killed Renee Good. He stands by that work, saying everyone has a constitutional right to legal counsel. He also says he supported the original stated goal of Operation Metro Surge, which was to target violent offenders who are here illegally. The mood around Minnesota may feel bleak, but we're also seeing community strength. Minnesotans stepping up to help their neighbors here. Powwow Grounds and All My Relations Gallery have transformed into a community hub in response to the ICE surge. They're in their third week of collecting donations. Local influencer Sade Young put out a call for coats for those being released in the cold from the Whipple building, and now she has enough to fill a semi-truck. Yusra Muhammad has been helping local businesses impacted by ICE.
My nervous system is like distraught. I'm very overwhelmed, very overstimulated. At the same time, I am also inspired and I'm super motivated to continue to push this fight and do what I do every day because I am with Minnesotans.
If you want to give, we have more information right now at KARE11.com. This morning, Secretary of State Steve Simon is speaking out about the letter from AG Pam Bondi on the request for information on voter data. The Department of Justice is already suing the state for not releasing this information to them. Minnesota is one of 32 states refusing to turn over voter rolls. Texas and 10 other states did turn it over. Simon calls the demand an overreach and says it's illegal.
Order for the Department of Justice or others to get this kind of sensitive voter data on Minnesotans, they need to do at least two things. They need to say with particularity why they need this particular information. And number two, they need to say what they're going to do with it. How will it be stored? Who will it be shared with? How will it be secured? And they haven't done either of those things. So
Simon says the state has offered publicly available voter information, but the DOJ declined the offer. The next hearing for the DOJ lawsuit is March 3rd. Right now, polls are open for voters in the East Metro to fill 2 seats in the State House. The first is in District 47A, which includes parts of Woodbury and Maplewood, after Amanda Hemmingson Yeager won election to the state Senate. DFLer Shelley Buck is the only candidate on the ballot since no Republicans are running. In St. Paul, voters will choose who will fill the District 64A seat previously held by Kali Herr, who is now the city's mayor. DFL endorsed Meg Lugar-Nicolai is up against Republican Dan Walsh. Polls are open until 8 p.m., and you can find your polling place on the Secretary of State's website. This morning, Hennepin healthcare officials say the Minneapolis hospital is in crisis mode, operating so deep in the red, it's now laying off people and shuttering services. HCMC is a publicly funded hospital that cares for people who don't have insurance or rely on Medicaid, a program facing really big cuts that's really impacting the reimbursement rates. The hospital needs to cut at least $50 million right now and will start by laying off 100 employees and closing its chiropractic, acupuncture, and sleep services. It's also asking the legislature to approve repurposing tax money that was used to build Target Field to instead fund the hospital.
People that might come visit their relatives who are at the hospital, they might grab lunch, they might stay at a hospital, things like that. We might recoup some of that money, so it's not just Hennepin covering those costs.
Now, the hospital says patients should keep their appointments until notified otherwise, as it plans to help them continue their care through referrals and other providers. And the future of the mHealth Fairview partnership looks more likely this morning. The University of Minnesota, the University Physicians Group, and Fairview announced a new 10-year deal. Under the agreement, Fairview will continue to help fund the U of M Medical School, and U of M doctors will continue to practice with Fairview. With the current agreement expiring at the end of 2026, the parties have been working the past few years to avoid a split. New details this morning on a deadly plane crash that shut down Bangor International Airport in Maine. Authorities now saying 6 people were killed when the private jet crashed during takeoff on Sunday night. Right now, the FAA is investigating if weather played a role in the crash. A nor'easter storm was moving through the area when that crash happened. Make sure you stick with us. More news and weather coming up after the break.